What's up, guys? Good evening and welcome back to Shop Talk Tuesday Live. If you're here with us this evening, give us a shout out. Let us know where you're chiming in from. Let me know where you're chiming in from. This evening is going to be pretty cool because we're going to be able to bust these things out of the mold. These little box pieces that we poured last week. Before we do that, I just want to go over a few things that I noticed with these before we get into pulling these things out. So guys, as you know, if you've been to a Shop Talk Tuesday Live before, this whole evening is like a Q&A session, plus we get to do some cool things. And so if you have a question, and there are a lot of questions going on, if you want me to see your question, the easiest way obviously is to do a super chat. However, you don't have to, and I'll do my best to answer all the questions, okay? And so before we get started, I'm gonna try to read off some of the comments and let you know what's going on. So KMB from Georgia, Coleman says hello from Montana. DK says hi Nate. Larry Simmons, hi from San Diego. Chad Hinwood's chainsaws, woodworking, boat racing. Hey brother, how are you? Doing good, man. How are you? Steve hello from North Michigan. That scarecrow you found was cool. Yeah, that thing was crazy, wasn't it? And Chad says, hey y'all. Okay guys, before we get started, and like I said, I'm gonna do my best to walk back and forth to read the comments. I'm using my phone and my desktop. That's what we have right now. I'm by myself, so I don't have somebody to read the comments for me. However, I just want to show you a few things that I noticed with these molds before we break them out. And let's go ahead and jump into the content. Okay, first thing, this is more about the epoxy, but what I did notice was that I did not use a heat gun at all on these, and you can see top is bubble free. No bubbles in the very surface of the little box. Same with each one of these pieces, you can kind of see right there, and also with the square. Now I got a little bit of dust, but no bubbles. Bubble free. Nice. Same thing with the lids. Now another thing that I noticed really quickly too is that because these like where the lid is, there's like a little lip of silicone at the very top, and if you can see inside the silicone here, it's able to trap bubbles underneath this outside lip. That's the only downfall that I see, and I didn't want to use a heat gun because I just wanted to see what would happen, especially with this epoxy. However, if you used a heat gun, more than likely those bubbles would have been able to escape. So we'll see how bad it looks or how good it looks when we bust these things out of the mold. Okay. Also, I always keep some of these silicone ice cube trays handy because when I have leftover epoxy when I'm pouring, I go ahead and I pour these in there. These are really good for bottle stoppers. They keep the prices down, obviously, if you want to sell some bottle stoppers, but they come out looking like this. So like a little cube. Now, see how there's a little dimple on the bottom? That's the only thing you'd have to sand down and drill for the bottle stopper. You also would have to sand down the top if you wanted to. Other than that, it's almost ready to turn into a bottle stopper all by itself. Another thing I like to do is I have these pin blank molds. Now, I don't turn pins. I don't have a lathe small enough for pins. I don't have a mandrel. I have a big 36-inch lathe, and I guess I could get a mandrel for it if I wanted to turn pins, and I may do that in the future. But I always keep these handy because I have a friend who turns pins, and he always buys them off me for just a couple of bucks. So, you know, might as well get something for them rather than give them away for free, right? I mean, to the trash. I mean, obviously, I would give these away to my friends if they wanted them, but you can always get some few bucks out of it, right? Because epoxy is expensive, am I right? So, Richard Collins says, Heidi from Escanaba, Michigan. Jennifer says, hi, Nathan and Shop Talkers. Chad says, hi, Jennifer. Richard said, you are a little blurry, too far from the camera. It might be that. It also might be my internet connection, so sorry about that. Steve says, what do you do about the sharp edges on the cubes? Same for the coasters. So it will take a little bit of prep. You just use some sandpaper and sand them down a little bit. Chad says, sand them, Steve. Yep. Steve Kirkland says, hey, Nathan. And KMB says, too expensive. LOL, go through it like crazy. I know, right? Really do. Okay. So now that we got some of those comments out of the way, let's go ahead and bust these things out of the form. So I'm going to go ahead and tilt the camera down so you guys can see. And we'll start pulling these things out, okay? All right. So we're going to go ahead and start with the hexagon one, the hexagon box. And Steve hit us up with a super chat. Thank you so much, Steve. I really appreciate it. Every little bit helps, and thank you for supporting the channel, man. I really, really appreciate it. So let's go ahead and we'll do the bottom first, and then we'll do the top. Okay. So let's go ahead and pull these things out. You really want to be careful when you're pulling these out because you can have some sharp edges. Here we go. Look at that. Go ahead and fold this back in. Back to normal. Now look at that. Super pretty. Super pretty box. Now, one thing, see, when I'm looking at it, I don't actually see any, there's one tiny little bubble right there on the corner. I mean, so small. You can hardly even notice it. That's the only one I see. One little tiny bubble, and that's it. So, wow. Super impressive. Super impressive. Chad Hinwood hit us up with a super chat. Hey, Chad, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. He says, for Christmas stuff, you guys are awesome. Man, I really like the color of that. So this is the P750, which is the Tetra. Man, it changes from like a green almost to an orange. It's really, really pretty. From a gold, green, all over the place. Yeah, really nice. Okay, let's get the lid. Let's take that lid out of there. This is the one I think might have a few bubbles in it. We'll see. Yep, I see one. All right, this one does have a couple of bubbles in it. And once again, this is because I just did not choose to use a heat gun because I was just curious to see how it worked. Now, here you go. You can see underneath that lip, you see there's a big chunk missing right there and some along the edges. I don't know if you guys can see those. But that was my fault for not using a heat gun to get all those bubbles out. And there's this little lip. Things get caught underneath this, and so really need to use a heat gun and or a toothpick to get these air bubbles out. So that would be a tip. All right, let's go ahead and put that lid on the box. Look at that. Nice and pretty. Pretty little box. That's super cool. All right. What do you guys think about that first one? The first one just came out really nice. All right, time for the heart. Now this heart, same thing. It's the pigment is different though. We used a P7020 Beta is the color. So let's go ahead and get this out. We'll start with the bottom again like we did last time. Go ahead and pull it out. Look at that color change on that one. Wow. Very pretty. Look at that. Very, very pretty. This one has no bubbles in it. No air bubbles at all. Came out super duper nice. I like that one a lot. That color combination is very pretty. So go ahead and stick these two together. All right, now let's do the lid. Now I feel that we're gonna have the same problem with the lid that we are with the bottom. So let's go ahead and see what that's gonna be like. Okay, not as bad. Got a couple little bubbles, but once again, underneath that lip, air bubbles got trapped. And I'll show you. I don't know if you can see that air bubble right there on the corner. And then, now it doesn't go all the way through to the top, but it's underneath that bottom lip. Also, another little one on the bottom, right there. So not bad at all. Another little pretty box. These colors really, it's really hard to get it on camera, but you can really see the color change there happening. You see that? Very pretty. I like that color. So once again, that is P7020 Beta. And you guys, if you want to check out these pigments, you can go to goodviewwoodworks.com and click on the shop tab and click epoxy, and then you can get all of our pigments. We have 50 different colors, or over 50 different colors that you guys can choose from. So I encourage you to go over there and check them out. All right, last but certainly not least, we have the regular box. And this one is P7030 Macaw. So let's go ahead and bust this thing out. Same thing, we'll start with the bottom. You guys, one thing, be careful, because the thing makes some sharp edges for sure. Ooh. Super duper pretty. Now this one goes all the way from a green to a blue to a purple. This is a really pretty color. I wish, what's crazy is our eyes pick up, my eyes pick up so many different colors than what the camera is picking up. And this one also, no bubbles. No bubbles at all, actually. Which is really impressive. I did notice that it bows out a little bit, so you see on the bottom of the box here, kind of makes a small radius, but I don't think that's an issue. What do you guys think? And the same thing, let's see if the lid does the same thing that it did on everything else. Yep, same issue. This one, it does it on almost every corner. All right. So once again, we have the air bubbles on the corners. I don't know if you guys can see that. See that little air bubble right there on the corners? The bubbles get trapped in the corner, so if you guys wanted to buy these, I would encourage you just to lift the corner up a little bit with a toothpick or something like that and get those bubbles out of there. Definitely use a heat gun. Wow, super pretty boxes though. Super duper pretty. That came out actually much better than I anticipated. All right, so let's get to the pin blanks. Now, let me know in the messages if you guys need turn pins or anything like that. If you guys want these, I'll go ahead and send them out to you. Yeah, let me know. Let me know if you'd be willing to, or if you want something like that. If you guys turn pins. But anyway, I'll go ahead and bust these things out too. See what they look like. That's a cool color. This one had very little pigment in it, but it turned out really nicely. Look, no bubbles. There's one bubble on the very edge, but it's at the very top. But look how clear this epoxy is. And guys, if you want these silicone molds that you see here, I did not link the pin mold or the ice cube tray, but the ones for the boxes and the epoxy that we used are down in the description. Okay? So there's one. Let's go ahead and get this other one out of there. There we go, same thing. It almost looks like a nebula or something inside. It's very pretty. And we'll do these ice cube trays last, and then we'll get to our Q&A sesh. Okay, this one is the Tetra. Super cool. This one is the Beta. The one the heart was made out of. So we got this one. We got the Tetra. And then we have two of the macaw. So we got one macaw there. And we have another little macaw because we had a little extra left over for that one. All right, guys, so I'm gonna put the tripod down and let's get to some questions. All right. All right, guys. So we got Let me see if I can get some of these questions here. Driving with Jake said, that's pretty cool. I need to get me some of those for my next pour as it will be big. Steve No says, that's awesome. Chad Henwood says, no, thank you, bro. You've helped me a lot this year. No problem, Chad. Driving with Jake says, added those molds to my cart. Awesome, dude. Thank you so much. Hey, thank you for that, too, because anytime you guys click and go buy something on Amazon, it doesn't cost you any more money, but I get a little bit of a commission for it, and so every little bit helps. I think it's like, I don't know, 3% or 5% or something like that. Nothing too crazy, but every little bit counts, like I always say. So thank you for the support. Also, if you guys are going to get the Incredible Solutions epoxy, what you guys can do is, I'll type in the comments right here, you get a 10% off coupon if you were buy the Incredible Solutions, and it is GoodView 10 WW. So if you guys type that in when you buy something on Amazon, when you buy the Incredible Solutions on Amazon, it'll give you a 10% off discount. So that helps too. Steve Kirkland says, love it. Chad says, have a good Christmas. I'll have to go see you all next year. No problem, man. Really appreciate it. Steve says, your pigments are top drawer and priced affordable. Hey, Steve, I appreciate that. Yeah, I try to keep the price down, obviously. That way more people can try this out because epoxy is so fun. I just encourage everyone to go try it out a little bit. I'm trying to make it more affordable for you guys to try, Steve notices, how do you keep the shine when you sand them? What grit paper to take the sharp edges off? So that's kind of the trick, Steve, is that you cannot keep the shine once you sand them. So there's multiple ways you could sand them down to a higher grit, like maybe like a 2000 grit or 2500 grit. And then if you use a buffing wheel, you can actually buff it back out with some polish. As long as you sand it with a high grit like 2500, something like that. Steve says, those colors are great. Thanks, Steve. Troy says, what's up, Nate from Louisiana? It's been a while. Hey, Troy. By the way, Troy, you've really been posting a lot of really cool projects over at the Goodview Woodworks community group on Facebook, and I really appreciate you doing that. Thank you so much. Guys, if you haven't been over there, why don't you go over there and ask to join, and we'll get you into that community group. That way you can start posting pictures of your projects as well. We answer questions over there, and it's like a little spot where you guys can show off the talent that you guys have, Great little community. Becca B says, the pigment for the box is my favorite. For the square box is my favorite. Yeah, the macaw, the square box. Yeah, this one is, it's P7030. I don't know if it's backwards for you guys, but it's P7030 macaw. So yeah, this is a really, really pretty color. Steve No says, what do you do with the cubes? So you guys can go on Amazon and order like a little bottle stopper kit. I think it's like a couple of bucks, maybe $3. And you use the ice cubes as bottle stoppers. So if you drink wine, or if maybe your wives or girlfriends or husbands or whoever, if they like to use oil when cooking, you can use it as a bottle stopper, cork, whatever, wine, So that's what I use them for, is the bottle stoppers, because they're quick and easy. Steve says, I'll be adding those to my cart. That's awesome. Richard Collins says, where you took that smokehouse down, is that part of where your new shop will go? I'm debating. So that's a really good question. Yes and no. Well, it may go there, but it may not be. That part, I have a lot of property back there. I have another 1.5 acres behind that. And then there's cornfield around that. So it really looks like my property goes really far. And so we're tearing some of that stuff down. One, because the insurance company told me I had to. And two, we really like to just see the land that we have in our property. It makes it look a lot prettier, a lot nicer, and we get to enjoy it. So that'll open it up a little bit. Troy says, have you ever had issues with epoxy freezing during shipping? Yeah, one time I had it crystallize, and that's not usually an issue. What I do is I just sit it in front of a heater, and I let it get back to a liquid state and mix it up. And once it's warm, it's been warm, I'd like to keep it inside room temperature, and it usually is okay. There was one time where it crystallized on me, but not because it was frozen, but more because it was old. And so it kind of messed up. It didn't really want to mix, and that was after it had been sitting for, it had been sitting open for over 1.5 years. And so the shelf life for open epoxy is about 1 year. If that answers any of your questions, that's one of the questions I had early on. Troy said, thanks, bro, no problem. Steve says, can you add the bottle stoppers to your link so you get commission? Everything helps. That's right. You know what? I think I can. Let me see here if I can do that. Well, I'll have to do that after we finish live, because I don't want to get out of this here. I can also post it in. So I'm gonna go on Amazon real quick. I'll grab a link, and then I'll post it in the comments. I'll go back through and then copy it later. Okay. So I'll get one of these really quickly, and then I'll get you that link. So let's see here. It looks like a bunch of these on Amazon. It's 5 stoppers for $20. That makes them $4 each. So I'm gonna get this link really quickly, and then I'll go ahead and share it with you guys. Yeah, thanks for hanging in there with me while I get this. Come on, let's go over to YouTube, and here I'll put it right in the comments. All right, so if you guys click on that link, you can go right to the bottle stoppers. So Chris says, could you answer a finishing question for me? Of course, Chris, what's your question? And then KMB says, have you ever used Odie's oil for a finish? No, I have not yet, but I do want to. It seems to be a really good finish, and a lot of people use it. And so I do want to try it out. I haven't yet. So I don't want to, act like I know and I've never tried it. So from what I've read, though, it seems to be a really good finish. I know it's a lot of people go to that finish because it's quality. Troy Dubois says, Troy, I love the name. Did I say it like that? Did I say it right, Troy? It says, I love the name, even our last names. And then Troy, the other, yeah, I don't know how to say that one. Can you phonetically type that one out so I don't butcher it, please? Troy, he says, I have to look twice to see if it's me. I had to do the same exact thing. Chris says, making an epoxy river table with waterfall edge that will wrap under. Going to use Osmo to finish, but trying to figure out how to do all of the sides without marking. So what I would do, Chris, that's a great question, by the way, is I would do at least 1 or 2 coats of the Osmo before I cut the waterfall area, and just make sure I use some towels or something, lay it down, and that way you can get most of the edges and things like that first so it doesn't make it as awkward, and then apply your other finishes after you cut the waterfall. That should help. And another way, if you didn't want to do it that way, you can always finish it later, but then I would finish the bottom first, flip it over onto the legs, and then finish the top. That should help. Hopefully that answers your question. Troy Dubois says Dupuis. Troy says Dupree. It's the same here. Dupuis. Thanks. Troy says French, say dup, and we say yes in French, oui. Steve says, in North Michigan, it's cold now. My pole barn is about 60. Is it okay to continue to pour if I heat the epoxy first? Yes. Yeah, if the epoxy is warm when you mix it, everything should be good. If it, 60 is okay, it'll still cure in a 60-degree room. It just takes a really long time. You don't want to mix it when the individual parts are cold. That's the part that you want to go away from. But if you mix them while they're warm, you should be in the clear. I haven't had any issues with that. As a matter of fact, I mixed them when they're warm one time and I mixed too much. So I stuck it in the refrigerator, and the next day I came back and I still was able to pour and still had a good pour later on. So hopefully that answers your question. Chris says, I'll put a picture on your chat area when I finish. Yeah, Chris, go over to Facebook, to our Goodview Woodworks community group, and then you can post up pictures there. I would love to see it. Sounds really cool. I actually had a customer interested in doing a double waterfall table, and here coming up. We haven't finalized anything. We haven't even really talked about it, but I think it's going to happen. They are, it's actually some people we know, and we're really excited to make something for them. So hopefully it goes through. I really want to do a waterfall table. That seems to be super fun. Steve says, how can you tell if the epoxy is warm enough when it sloshes around in the jug? Yeah. I mean, if you were to move it around the jug, it's supposed to be very liquidy, not like molasses, but very thin. So the hardener is going to be almost like water, and the epoxy is going to be a little bit thicker than the hardener. So hopefully that answers your question. So Troy says, any thoughts about getting on MeWe and Parlor? Troy, guess what? I have never heard of those. Can you tell me what that is, please? All right, guys. So we are coming up to an end to this live stream. Troy, if you could answer that one question before we get off, that'd be great. If not, we can get to it over on Facebook. But guys, I really appreciate it so much. Thank you for the super chats, guys. Thank you for all the support. I'm going to answer these couple of questions before we get off here. But once again, guys, this is my favorite time during the week. I love Shop Talk Tuesday. You guys rock. Let me get to these couple questions and then we'll go ahead and sign off. So, Troy says, new social media sites, more conservative. Okay, I'll definitely check them out. So thanks, dude. I really appreciate it. Steve says, how thick should tables be? The last one was about an inch thick, and it seemed to warp a bit. Yeah, so an inch it depends on what kind of table. If it's a side table where a lot smaller, doesn't have a lot of surface area to bow, I would say that an inch would be okay. And it also depends on the legs. If you have, an inch is fine for a top too, if your legs have support on the base to keep it from moving. And 1 inch thick is fine. However, most tables, I would say, don't go any less than 2 inches, or 1 3/4, I guess. But 2 inches is about where I stand, because it keeps things rigid and keeps them from moving around a whole lot. You also want to make sure that your legs have support underneath. If that means bars, not inset in the table, but underneath. If you had some flat stock that it rests on that you can screw into, it always helps. Obviously, the inset bars make it look a little bit more professional, but you don't have to do that. So hopefully that answers your question. Troy says, great video tonight. Keep up the great work inspiring people. Thanks, Troy. I really appreciate it, man. And Steve says 20 by 28 inches. So he says, thanks for doing this. You're awesome. Keep up the great work. Guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate the encouragement. And so we're going to go ahead and sign off. I'm going to go tend to my babies. I can hear one of them crying in the background. I think my baby boy, he's coming up on 3 months old. Can you believe it? That's been a short 3 months. Once again, thanks, guys. I'm going to go tend to him. And you guys are awesome. Thank you for hanging out with us Thank you for all the support. You guys are awesome. Once again, I am out of here, and I will catch you on the next one. Good night, guys. Love you all.